Hi! Getting ready to sell your house? An important part of selling your house is the home inspection process. This video is going to make the home inspection process as easy as possible for you. Throughout the video, we're going to be looking at systems in the house itself, and places where the homeowner could easily fix some things to make the home inspection process a bit easier. And then at the end of the home inspection, we're also going to be looking at what I call the 4 emotional kill points in a house, which are things that money can still fix, but a lot of times when a home buyer hears one of these 4, they just stop and walk away. So these are things that we want to pay extra special attention to. My name is Brandon Laguerre, and I'm a home inspector in the Seattle area. I've been doing home inspections for 19 years, and I've been through over 10,000 houses, so I've seen just about everything that a house can offer. Over the course of my time doing home inspections, I've had both realtors and clients ask me, what do I need to do to get my clients ready or to get myself ready to go through a home inspection? And what is a home inspection? So these are the things that we're going to be looking at as we go through this video. What is a home inspection, you might ask? A home inspection is me or somebody like me who's a home inspector coming into your house and going through your house, around the outside, up on the roof, and in the crawl space, all those places, and creating a list of negative items on your house. And what we've discovered over the years is that list could have been shortened quite a bit had the homeowner known ahead of time of things that are easy to fix and correct on their house prior to the home inspector coming through their house. Okay, so let's have some fun. We're going to head on outside and we're going to look at the grounds of the house and the exterior of the house as our starting point. Here we are alongside the house, and the first thing that we're going to look at is vegetation. Everybody's got vegetation around their house, okay? And what we want is we want a foot space. You could do 6 inches, but we really want a foot between the vegetation and the house. Vegetation can transmit water, moisture, and insects into the house, so we really want a separation on that. Also, if we kind of go up, we can see that this tree is overhanging the roof a little bit. In a perfect world, we would trim the vegetation back so that there's no trees overhanging the roof and dumping leaves or debris onto the roof. Siding on the outside of your house is the first thing that people see as they approach your house. So if your siding can be in good shape, that would be fantastic. What we would like is all the paint on it, anything peeling would get taken care of, moss would be taken off of the bricks so that everything's just looking good, looking tight. If your siding's in really bad shape, falling off the side of the house, that's a whole different discussion. We're not going to get there today. So if there's any rot on the outside of your house, this is a great example at the end of this beam, which has been sitting in the weather, get that fixed. And if there's any pieces of wood missing in the soffit or trim or fascia board, so this is a good example here, that'd be something that's fairly easy to have somebody come out, a carpenter, and replace. So that's all just tight and clean. Okay, here we have an example of wood and soil in contact with each other. So you want to walk around your house and make sure that no soil is touching any of the wood on the house. So this soil will just get dug out. Soil is going to transmit water into the wood and cause this wood to rot over time. So we want to have a separation between all soil and all wood. Some of the really important parts on the house are the flower beds in the front of the house, because people add mulch and bark mulch, and slowly those go up in height, and now they're leaning against the siding and you don't even know it. Make sure all of that gets taken off. All exterior lights need to be working. And what I mean by working is when I turn on the switch, the lights turn on. So this is a good example over here. There's no light bulb in this fixture, so I don't know whether that fixture works or not. So that goes on the list. So make sure that there are working light bulbs in all of the exterior light fixtures. Exterior outlets on your house, are they GFCI protected? This is a GFCI outlet right here. Older houses will not have GFCI technology on them, so that might be something you would consider upgrading. If you were to do that, make sure an electrician does that. That's not something that you want to do as a homeowner. Hose faucets on the outside of the house, make sure that they have vacuum breakers on them. Older hose faucets will not have vacuum breakers. Newer houses will. This is a vacuum breaker that you can buy at any hardware store or whatever, about $8, $9, and it literally screws onto the hose faucet to create a vacuum breaker system. The vacuum breaker keeps water from backflowing into the city water supply if the city water supply were to shut off. So it is an important part of the plumbing system of the house. Driveways and walkways, we've got some cracks in them and we've got a little bit of displacement over here. This kind of stuff, you have to kind of make a decision, do you want to actually fix it? It's going to be in the report, but this is also a less important thing on the house. So you can certainly survive with cracks and displacement in the driveway. If the driveway is really, really nasty, cars are falling into potholes and you can't get them back out, you probably want to do something with that. But minor stuff like this, not too worried about it. Steps. It's amazing how many steps on houses do not have graspable handrails. This is not a graspable handrail. A graspable handrail is a round piece of wood that a small child could grab while they go up and down the steps, right? So that anybody could grab it and use it. So this is also another very easy thing that a homeowner could install onto their steps on the outside of the house, and that would be one less thing on the list. Exterior drains are found in your driveway and down in your basement stairwells usually. Sometimes they'll be out in the yards too. But these guys are usually pretty easy to check. Take the lid off and look in there and go, hey, do I need to clean any of the debris out? When I'm doing inspections, I'm going to be dumping water down these to make sure that they drain. So that would be something that you could fairly easily clean out and get it ready to go, so that that's one less thing on the list. Windows have window screens. Window screens need to either be on the house or off the house. You cannot have them half on and half off because that's something that would then get written up. In most cases, when the house is getting ready for market, all the window screens are getting taken off to photo the house anyway, so I would just take them all off and store them someplace where they're going to be kept safe. Gutters need to be clean. All the debris needs to come out of the gutters because if you have debris in the gutters, it's going to fill up and not drain. So make sure you clean all the gutters of debris. Now, we're going to head up onto the roof. Okay, we're up on the roof, and there's two things on the roof that we really need to remember. One is you are never getting on the roof and doing the roof work that I'm going to be talking about. And two, more importantly, is you are never following me up on the roof when I'm doing a home inspection like numerous clients have tried to do. Insurance companies hate that. I hate that. Just don't even go there. Chimney. Chimneys, if you got a house that's got a brick chimney, we've got some easy things that could be addressed and some harder things that could be addressed. Easy is the debris that's built up around the chimney base could get cleaned out. Easy is that if the older flashing is a little bit rusty but still in good shape, that could get prepped and painted. Easy is that up on the top where the flues are exposed to the weather, we could get a rain cap put on it. A little more difficult is if the mortar's wearing out and you're looking at potentially repointing your chimney. You'd have to think about that before you hauled off and did that. Okay, you see how this roof comes down to this flat roof, and we see all this debris that's accumulated on the flat roof. We want to get all that debris off the roof. No debris on the roof because it's going to prohibit the roof from draining correctly. Make sure all of your downspouts are attached and ready to go. The other thing about downspouts is they take the water from the roof and it goes someplace. Where does it go? So it either does this where it lands on a splash block and drains next to the house. This is okay, but we'd like to have that water get at least 6 feet away from the house so it doesn't drain back into the basement. The other option is it goes into a plastic pipe and the pipe takes it away from the house. So just make sure that it's doing one of the two. Last thing on the roof is moss. Pretty much everybody in Seattle is going to deal with moss on the roof. It's just part of this environment, right? So what we want to do with moss, I really lean heavily towards Moss Begone or some sort of moss treatment program that you're putting some powder on the roof. It washes down to the moss, it kills the moss, and it all goes away in a couple weeks. What I do not want to ever see on the roof is somebody up there pressure washing the roof. There's so many roofs that I've walked that that they tell me the roof is 10 years old, and I get up there and there's literally holes through the roof because somebody who didn't know what they were doing was pressure washing and they were digging the moss out, and the roof is totaled and they have to replace it. So do not pressure wash your roof when you're trying to remove the moss. Use a Moss Begone product to take care of it. Here's a little free tip. No extra charge in this one, just something you get all by yourself. Blue tarps. As much as people think it is the case, blue tarps are not an upgrade on the property. So I would highly recommend no blue tarps on the roof, no blue tarps on the outside of the building, no blue tarps on the inside of the building, no blue tarps. Okay, so that generally sums up our tour of the outside. We're gonna head on inside now and take a look around. Okay, we're inside the house and kind of some general observations about inspecting the inside of a house. Once again, like I said, outside all the lights need to be functional. So for example, this light is not working. When I'm inspecting a house, I am not taking the time to get up there and see if it needs to be screwed in or tested. We're just saying that light bulb doesn't work and an electrician needs to come out and fix it. So that's going to just open up a can of worms for you. Outlets. Outlets need to be accessible so I can test them. If I can test all the outlets in the house, that would be great. If there's an occasional one behind a piece of furniture, that's how it goes. Little side comment on outlets, depending on the age of the house that you have, older houses have ungrounded wiring systems in them and their outlets look like this. They don't have the little mouth in the face, right? And so if you have an older house, this is very common in Seattle, a lot of times people will still have the older wiring system in the house, but they'll put new plugs in so they can plug their vacuum cleaners in. And now I'm calling every single one of these plugs wrong because when I test it, it's ungrounded. And so if you have an older house with ungrounded wiring in it, you can either rewire the house, which most people are not going to do because it costs a whole lot of money, or you can take these outlets and revert them back to the 2-prong outlet, or you can put a GFCI outlet in those, and that's got a little button and it will mimic a ground. If you do that, make sure it has a sticker on it that says no equipment ground on it because I'll still be calling it out. If you were to do any of those fixes on an outlet, you want to make sure that an electrician does that and you do not do that. Kitchens, like the rest of the house, it's about being clean and presentable. If you look at this kitchen, it's somewhat dated, but it's very clean. So this is going to be totally fine. I'm going to test all the appliances as part of the inspection. So what we're really keyed in on is, do the appliances work? I'm not so much worried about whether the appliances are older or newer. I'm worried about whether they're functional or non-functional. So make sure all the appliances are working. The other thing with appliances that I find when people are getting ready to put their houses on the market is a lot of times in the oven and the dishwasher particularly, people will store things in them. And so I would highly suggest making sure that they're open because it's a real bummer when I come in and turn on the oven and dishwasher and there's stuff stored inside the dishwasher and oven. Ice makers and freezers with ice makers inside them. Make sure that those ice makers are on and I've got ice in them. That way I know that they're working. If they're empty, I'm going to talk about the fact that I don't know if they're working or not. Another little side note, just one of those other freebies for you guys. The ice that you buy at stores and you fill up your ice makers with, that's a different shape than what your ice maker actually makes. I'm not saying anybody's ever done that, but I'm just saying you may want to think about not doing that. Outlets in the kitchen should all be GFCI protected. A lot of times in older houses they're not, so that may be something that you want to upgrade. It's fairly easy to do. Again, if you upgrade outlets, that is something an electrician is doing, you are not doing. One of the main places in the kitchen that I find damage occurring is underneath the sink, because this is where all the water happens in the kitchen. And so when you're getting your house ready to go, check under the sink and just make sure that the cabinet under there isn't water damaged. If it is, that may be something that you would consider repairing. When I look at the laundry room, I'm going to run everything in the laundry room. So I'm running the sink, I'm running the washer on a rinse cycle, and I'm running the dryer. A lot of times people tell me, oh, we're taking the washer and dryer, so you don't need to test those. I need to make sure that the washer drain drains and the exhaust duct for the dryer works. So I'm still going to run those whether you're taking them or not. So just make sure that these are also empty of clothing, because a lot of times I'll show up and they're full of clothing and then I can't test them. In the bathroom, we're checking a number of things, but things that you could take a look at is, are the outlets in the bathroom GFCI protected? Again, an electrician would fix that, but that could be a fairly easy upgrade. Is the toilet loose on the floor? I'll take it and kind of rock it like this and see if it moves. It needs tightening if that's not the case. And then tile, is all the tile work in the bathroom sealed? That's a product that can be bought at any hardware store, and we can seal the tile. And then just like the kitchen, we're talking about a lot of times we'll find damage underneath the sink where the sink's been leaking. So that may be something that you would be repairing. Biggest issue in bathrooms is water damage. And so we're really looking for water damage and seeing whether that can get corrected and fixed or not. So in approaching the electric panel, I need access to the panel. So stuff stored in front of the panel, this whole shelf and stuff, it'd be really great if that's not there, so that I can stand in front of the panel. Because when you're the homeowner, you need access to the breakers to shut them off. But when I'm the home inspector, I need to actually take this metal panel off. Do not do that if you are a homeowner, because I need to look inside the panel and look at the wiring. So access in front of the panel is really important. In the interior of the house, I find a lot of times, primarily in the bedrooms, that we'll find doors missing, right? Because people are taking them off to get easier access to the closets and so forth. So as we move forward towards doing an inspection, make sure all the doors are back in place, because again, this would be something else that would just add a line to the list. Throughout the house, we want smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. So there's one up there. Smoke detectors are going one in each central area on each floor and in all the bedrooms, and a carbon monoxide detector is going one in each central area on each floor near all bedrooms. Make sure you do all of that, because that's something that an appraiser is going to also call out along with me calling it out. Blown window seals in houses are fairly common, and this is another one that you got to kind of make a decision on, because obviously it's some money to replace the glass that's blown, but it certainly does change the aesthetics of the house if I'm looking through clear glass or if I'm looking through foggy opaque glass. So that would be something to just consider doing. I would lean towards replacing all of them, because it's one less thing on the list and the house looks so much better. Down in the basement, we've got water heaters, furnaces, electric panels, things like that. Sometimes a laundry room is down here in an open basement. All of that, if that can be accessible to me, would be very helpful, right? I know a lot of times when we're selling our house, everything in the house is getting boxed and getting put down in the basement. But if we could store it so that I have pathways to get to the things that I need to inspect, that'll make it go a lot easier, right? If the basement can be clean, that would be awesome too. Things that you can do as a homeowner as far as your plumbing system goes. You're not necessarily replumbing your entire house and upgrading everything, but we do need to look at the plumbing system, find out how old the pipes are, stuff like that. The main thing that a homeowner can do is, here is a water heater, and does that water heater have earthquake straps? Neither one of these water heaters have earthquake straps, and that is something that the appraiser is going to call out on their inspection as well as my inspection. So that's an easy thing for you to go to a big box store or something, get earthquake straps and get them bolted into the wall in the basement so that they don't rock and shake. Heating systems, kind of the main thing for me, one, are they functional? Do they work? And then two, have they been maintained? Do we have a service record on them? A lot of times I find that service companies do not put stickers on the furnaces anymore. So if you could have your receipts somewhere near the furnace so that when I'm there home inspecting, I can see, oh, it's been cleaned and maintained. And if you haven't serviced your furnace recently, make sure that it gets serviced before the house goes prior to market so that it's been recently serviced. One of the main things too is filters. We're always finding dirty filters, so make sure that that filter gets pulled out and replaced. That's a very easy thing for a homeowner to do. So this is the attic access. In this house, it's located in the bedroom, which they frequently are. So the first thing is to make sure that the closet in the bedroom is free of clothes and stuff so I can actually get into the attic, because part of the inspection is I do have to get in the attic. Second one is, a lot of times the accesses are painted shut, and so I'd love to have that open so that it's easy for me to open it up and get into the attic. All right, let's go into the attic. We're in the attic, and the things that I'm going to be looking at when I crawl through an attic is how much insulation is there in the attic, what kind of roof framing do you have, and then issues that we have up in the attics a lot of times are going to be water intrusion. Is the roof leaking? Do we have rats in the attic? Do we have mold on the sheathing because there's not enough ventilation? So those are the things that I'm going to be looking at while I'm going through an attic. If you decide to get up in your attic and check things out, there are a couple things you need to remember. Always wear a mask because we have insulation. Sometimes you're gonna have rodent poop, so attics are really nasty for breathing air. Don't do that. And then the main one is if you get up in the attic, there's wood in the attic and there's insulation in the attic. Pretty much guaranteed if you step on the insulation, you're crashing back down into your living room, and you really don't wanna do that. So if you decide that you need to get up in the attic, really make sure that you can visually see the wood that you're stepping on and you don't just wander through the attic, because the vast majority of the attic is crashing back down in your living room territory, and we don't want to do that. Are your bathroom fans and your kitchen fan, do those get to the outside of the house? We're really looking for the ductwork on those. A lot of times that's not attached and it's just venting into the attic. Some houses have crawl spaces. If you have a crawl space in your house, that's another place like the attic that I need to get to. So we want to make sure that there's nothing in front of the crawl space, and pretty much all crawl spaces are going to have some sort of hatch cover on them. So make sure that that hatch cover is removable. If your crawl space is a crawl space that has 15 screws in the hatch to keep the monster in the crawl space, make sure most of those screws are out before I get there. We're in the crawl space, and common things that we're looking for in the crawl space is, again, checking the framing of the house, checking the insulation. Is it all installed or are some pieces fallen? Do we have rats in the crawl space? Do we have water in the crawl space? Do we have wood debris left over from construction in the crawl space? All of those things would need to get addressed and looked at. Once again, kind of like the attic, if you were somebody who decided you wanted to get in your crawl space, really make sure you have a mask and you have a Tyvek suit, because crawl spaces invariably are just dirty places to be. So the garage is the place where most people are going to store all their stuff in the house when they're selling the house. And that's totally fine. I'm good with that. But if you're storing all your stuff in the house, the garage is also the place that has a lot of things I need to get to. The electric panel, if there's a water heater or a furnace, just make sure that those things are accessible to me while I'm in the garage doing the home inspection. This is a great example right here, in that there's an attic access up here and I need to get in that attic access, but I cannot get in this attic when the car's parked underneath the attic access. So if we can make sure that the places I need to get are accessible, that would be great. Final thing in the garage is, one of the things that we would call out is if there's any holes in the walls or ceilings that would allow fire to get into the house, those need to be patched and sealed. Before I get to the 4 emotional kill points on a house, there are 2 other things that I do not do as part of my home inspection. First one is sewer scope inspections. It would be good to do a sewer scope inspection, and that's a sewer scope inspector running their camera from your house out to the main. In the Seattle and a lot of the areas around Seattle, you as the homeowner are responsible for your sewer line to the main sewer line, so we want to know what kind of shape that's in. Second thing that we want to come to a conclusion on in a house is, if you live in a house that was built, say, somewhere between 1900 and 1960, 61, 62, odds are that house was heated with an oil heating system at some point, which means there was an oil tank on the property. So you as a homeowner want to come to a conclusion that that oil tank, if it's no longer in use, if you've stepped away from oil, is decommissioned. And so you either have that decommissioning certification, or if you do not, you may consider having a tank locate company come out and look for that oil tank and get that decommissioning certification to you. We've made it to the 4 emotional kill point part of the video. If this video has been helpful to you so far, please hit the subscribe and like us. Why are they called the 4 emotional kill points? What I have discovered over years of doing inspections is the 4 things we're going to talk about. When people hear these things come up on an inspection or about the house, they emotionally stop thinking and sometimes walk away. And so if you can address these 4 items, then that will make your house sale go a whole lot better. Number 1 is lead paint. If your house is built prior to the 1980s, odds are it's got lead paint in it somewhere. The best thing you can do with lead paint is just to make sure that all the paint on the inside and the outside of your house is clean and recently painted, no peeling paint, and that's about the best you can do. Number 2 is mold. Most of the time, I'm going to find mold up in the attic due to lack of ventilation or bathroom fans venting into the attic, stuff like that. If we find mold during the inspection, that's something that I would highly recommend you get remediated prior to going on the market. Number 3 is asbestos. Asbestos is a building product that was very common from the 1900s all the way up into the mid-1970s. The primary place that I'm concerned about asbestos is asbestos tape that's going to be inside your heat ducts or on your heat ducts down in the basement. And that would have carried from 1900 into the late 1950s. So that's definitely something you want to check out. And if we do find asbestos in your house, again, I would highly recommend that that gets remediated prior to the house going on the market. Number 4, the most emotionally charged of the 4 that we're talking about, is rodents, i.e. rats. Nobody likes rats in their house. Nobody ever has. Nobody ever will. So if I do an inspection on your house and we find out that there's a rodent problem either in the crawl space, basement, or the attic, that's something that you have to deal with, because the people coming to buy your house, when they read about how there's rats in the attic, that's just a total turn off. Nobody likes that. They freak out. It's a bad time. So that is one thing that I would say you have to deal with. If you have any particular questions about your house and getting it ready to go on the market, write those in the comments below.